What if we were trapped in an alternate dimension in the DC universe? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priest of the geeks. I am one of your hosts, Kevin Schaeffer, and coming on in just a minute, we have my fellow geekologists, Evan Garcia, Christian Ashley, waiting for them to pop up on the screen here, but there we are. What's up, guys?
Hey,
It's a good day, Kevin. Got a lot of good things to talk about.
A lot of good things to talk about. This is a What's News episode where we talk about all the latest things in geek culture. And if you couldn't tell from the intro, this episode will specifically focus on Peacemaker Season 2. So if you, first and foremost, if you have not watched Peacemaker, be warned, we are going to get into heavy spoilers as Season 2 wrapped up recently. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be doing some other things we've been geeking out on, and we're going to be also talking about a recent horror movie, Black Phone 2. So a lot to talk about tonight. If you are here for joining us for the first time, please, we want to give a huge thank you to all of you spending your time with us, whether here on YouTube or if you're listening later on one of your wherever you get your podcasts. Huge shout out to all of you. This is we are a group of geeks here that talk about also the philosophical themes and spiritual themes that intersect with geek culture. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our Patreons. You are all awesome. And also for Systematic Geekology, we have our new Fourth Wall site, which has a lot of our merchandise there. So if you want to check out, mugs, t-shirts, a lot of merch there, you can go to the site. Like, rate, and review us. It really helps the show. And yeah, whether you are a friend or enemy, hey, you're all welcome here. But wherever your fandoms live. So, well, Evan, Christian, great to have you guys here tonight. Before we get into the main topics of the evening, let us first start with our lightning round. Evan, hit that effect there.
I will once I find it.
No worries.
I got
We're
you,
having
buddy.
some tech issues.
Ka-chow.
There it is. Hey, we're having some tech issues tonight. It happens, but yes, our lightning round. This is where we go around, kind of talking about some of the other things we're geeking out on that don't have to do with the main topic. So, Christian, we'll start with you. What else? What are your lightning round picks tonight?
Yeah, I've got a couple. My first is going to be, and I'm late to the party, but K-pop Demon Hunters. This is a Netflix, if I remember correctly, production, and it was extremely fun. It's not exactly reinventing the wheel. It's a cliche storm, and I mean that affectionately. It was fun. The songs are catchy. The story was good. It's a good time. Like you can go way worse for material than watching K-pop Demon Hunters. Um, then as well, I saw Good Boy, which is one of those films I was kind of hesitant about. It's like I was afraid because the premise is it's from the not the POV isn't shot that way, but from the POV of a dog who is moving to a haunted house with his owner and the repercussions of dealing with that. It was one of those things that kind of feels like the idea was had first and then there was no story or character. It was my fear. But you know what? It turned out to be a pretty charming film. I'm not an animal pet owner by any stretch of the imagination, but it made me feel some things. It did a good job there. Let's see. Well, my last one is Pokemon Legends ZA, and that's the newest Pokemon game. I have some gripes with it, but overall, I'm enjoying the experience. So yeah, that's my lightning round.
Right on. I'm very surprised I haven't watched K-pop yet. I mean, I know it's a huge sensation right now, and I will get to it because it seems right up my alley in terms of I love animation. I love that style. I will get to that soon. For my picks, so I just did a full rewatch of Stranger Things. Anyone who knows me knows it's my favorite show, and we did a drive-in episode, or like kind of like a mini kind of overview of the show with me, Will, and Laura earlier this year. We'll be doing more in depth, particularly with the final season coming up. But it's still my favorite show. I'm very excited. I was just talking with Christian before we started recording. They announced that they will have the series finale in theaters on New Year's Eve, and I cannot wait for that. So there's my New Year's Eve plans right there. So very excited for that. The other one I want to highlight is HBO's The Chair Company, which is the new Tim Robinson series. I know Evan and I were texting about this earlier. He also loved Friendship, the movie that came out earlier this year, and it very much has that same feel. The Chair Company is a Tim Robinson vehicle where he plays a character who has an incident at work that's humiliating, and it sends him down this rabbit hole investigating a manufacturer of a chair. And it's very much a fusion of comedy and horror, much like Friendship. If you like the very awkward, cringy style of Tim Robinson's comedy, I think you will love this series. It's only 2 episodes in so far, but that's given me something to look forward to each week on Sunday night. So those are my picks. Evan, what about you? What are your lightning round picks here?
Yes, it was my first one. I'll do is a friendship that Tim Robbins joined. Like you said, for all those reasons, it's very it's like a car accident that you can't look away from. It's really bad. It's really bad. But in a way, it's all the things that good TV is. But other than that, my wife and I, we are doing The Wheel of Time. That's a Prime show, and we were just looking for something to start watching in the background. But then we got unhooked on it, and we're on season 2. We know that it wasn't picked up to be finished, so still the show's pretty good, and we are enjoying it. That's about it.
Yeah, I've heard from you. So I've not gone down the rabbit hole of. I have, I think, one of the Wheel of Time books, but it's an intimidating series to get into. But I've heard mixed things from fans of the books who have watched the show. But I've heard kind of if you just watch the show independently, it's a decent series. I may get to it eventually, but it just hasn't been on my top of my radar. But yeah, Friendship was. It was the hardest I laughed in a theater in a while when I saw that back in May. It's just so cringy. And the director of that movie is also a producer and director on The Chair Company. So again, if that's, I know it's a very specific style of comedy, but if it appeals to you, I think you will like this show and you'll love that movie. Awesome.
There we go.
Excellent. Well, thanks, guys. So let us get into the main topics tonight. The first is one I got to see on my birthday this week. Christian and I both had our birthdays this week, so we're another year older, maybe wiser. I don't know. We'll leave that to the discretion of people
Allegedly.
we know. Allegedly.
Are we all
exactly.
October birthdays?
We are.
Yeah.
18
Well, you
years.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
Oh,
Okay.
right on.
the 29th.
Dude,
Okay.
happy almost birthday. Right on.
Yeah, almost. Cool.
It's a good month. Very cool people are born this month.
I
Not
see.
to bash the other ones, but we got some cool people
I mean,
in October.
to feel
Yeah,
superior than.
exactly.
You said enough.
Well, yeah, right. Well, on my birthday, I got to see Black Phone 2. So, Evan, if you want to pull up those slides, this is the sequel to the 2021 Scott Derrickson film that is based on a short story by Joe Hill. And I really enjoyed the first one. I read the short story as well. The first one, it deals with supernatural elements, but it's mostly about this kid who is captured by this villain called the Grabber, who has been abducting and killing kids, and it is this kind of survival mystery thriller horror story that has a supernatural element to it as well. With the main character Finn, his sister Gwen has kind of psychic visions about, and that helps her lead the police to where Finn is eventually. And I really like that movie a lot. It works great as a standalone. And when they did announce a sequel to this, I was really interested because both Scott Derrickson, the director and co-writer, and then also C. Robert Cargill, the co-writer, these are the guys who did the first Doctor Strange movie, Sinister. Neither of them are big on sequels, and even though the studio pressured them to make one, they were actually reluctant to do this. And so they only wanted to do this movie if they had a good story in mind, and it was actually Joe Hill emailed them with the initial idea for a pitch, and that was because spoiler alert, but at the end of the first movie, Finney, the main character, kills the grabber and before the cops arrive. But in this movie, the tagline that Joe Hill gave to Derrickson and Cargill was, "What if the grabber is calling Finney from the black phone from hell?" And that was sort of
Nice.
the idea that led to this story. And so, well, Christian, I want to hand it over to you first. What were your initial thoughts on this movie? Because I did really enjoy it, and there's actually several themes I want to talk about in regards to what it does with the sequel.
Yeah, I was kind of hesitant for the sequel here because franchises, Hollywood horror franchises, especially that quality is all over the place, and it's like, does it need a sequel? And I didn't wasn't outright it doesn't need one, but I was like, okay, let's see what they do. And I was very pleasantly surprised by this one. I think they build up on what happened before extremely well. In my opinion, this is the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie we've gotten in over 2 decades. Seeing that series is in limbo at the moment, because obviously there were very some supernatural focuses of the original film. They build off of that way more, and I know that's been polarizing to some people, but but it's also sequels. You gotta heighten things a little bit. It makes sense within the lore they've kind of established, and now they're building up a little more with it there. The grabber and his backstory and how he's able to come back and how he's able to target people this time around. I think they did a tremendous job with it. It's not my It may end up in my top 10. No, at the end of the year, I'd have to compile it, number one, before I actually made that statement. But I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Nightmare on Elm Street influence was apparent and executed really well here. This was, they definitely had a lot in common with Dream Warriors, which is probably my favorite of the series. That and New Nightmare, I think, are pretty great. But yeah, it built on those themes. And in terms of the reason I wanted to talk about it here too is the religious themes here and how
Yes.
it explores that was, I thought, really fascinating. And this is something we've brought up on the show a lot is when particularly the horror genre deals with religious characters, they're often portrayed in stereotypical negative ways. You
Yes.
can almost always count on the priest being a villain or the religious leader, or it rarely do they win. This isn't exclusively to Christians too. It's just like people of faith in general in horror. They tend to demonize, and they tend to demonize religion. And like Scott Derrickson is not a person of faith, but he did have a Christian background, and the setting of this movie we didn't say, but so the main story involves Finney and Gwen are now in high school. Finney is still dealing with the trauma of what happened to him with the grabber, and he hasn't fully processed that, and he's often exhibiting that in bursts of anger and fights at school. And meanwhile, Gwen is having visions again, this time of her mother, who, when she was younger, she was at this Christian summer camp in Colorado. And so she starts having these visions that connect to her there. And this leads her to want to go to that camp and out in the mountains and try to get answers for why she's having these visions, and also help Finney deal with his trauma. And so that's where it takes place. And I think it was Derrickson and particularly C. Robert Cargill. I think this was Cargill. He had also this experience at working at this Christian summer camp when he was younger. And when he was there was actually a serial killer who never got caught, and they had to shut the camp down. So a lot of their experiences growing up really informed this story in particular, and that's what I like a lot about Derrickson's films is he draws on a lot of personal elements, and his collaboration with Cargill is really fluid. But going back to what I was saying about how negative the portrayal is of religious figures in horror often. Here, it I thought does a really good job with the portrayal of these characters who are people of faith. Granted, there is one, well, two really. There's a couple there who you do strongly dislike, and that are the very judgmental counselors who are like, young lady, stop with your vulgar language and stuff like that, and they're more concerned with their own safety than helping find the root of the evil that's been plaguing this campsite for so long. And so it has those two characters. But on the flip side, everyone else that they meet here are genuinely nuanced people of faith. They're well fleshed out characters. In particular, the director of the camp is this guy who acts sort of as a mentor, fatherly figure to Finney in many respects, and he is easily one of my favorite supporting characters of the movie. He's is the direct opposite of the other opposite of, he's not judgmental. He's very concerning. He's not trying to shove scripture down anyone's throat or just be antagonistic. He wants to really help Finn and Gwenny a lot. Finney and Gwen deal with this evil that again has been plaguing the campsite for so long. So I really liked that aspect and how it explores all those themes and how it connects to the grabber as this demonic force and looking at the evil in this world. And yeah, so I thought it did a really great job with those characters and giving that nuance that a lot of horror stories lack when it comes to dealing with religious characters. So yeah, I don't know, Christian, if you wanted to expand on that or anything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In any other horror film, the couple can't remember their proper names off. One of them, I
Yeah,
think
I
one
don't either.
Barb is one of their names.
Yeah, I think so.
Is the
Yeah,
wife's
yeah.
name. They would just be the only religious characters in the film in
Mm-hmm.
any other horror movie. But instead, what we get is those characters who exist in the world
Mm-hmm.
and are an archetype, are a cliche for a reason because they do exist. This is going back to Mist. This would be Carmody or whatever her name is, the religious zealot who doesn't listen to reason, who is influenced by scripture poorly because she's been raised poorly and doesn't understand the things she's believing in, versus we get Armando, I think is the name of the
Yes.
leader of the camp. And he is the one, you get some nice dialogue with him of why he's so invested in this, and there's some stuff that you can also pick up along the way that's not like spelled out for you. Is that he has tattoos, and he's like, well, I had those, I got these in prison, which shows me there was a time in his life when he lived far more harshly, and part of becoming the man that he is now is his faith. The change that he had enabled him to get to where he is now, to where he can love other people and care for them and care for kids who nobody else cares about because they've been dead for decades. And yet he bought the place for the camp because he has never given up hope that he can find the bodies and give like relief to the parents because he feels like they let them down. And he can't allow that. It goes against his faith, it goes against what he believes. And then even the stereotypical couple of the religious zealotry and more pharisaical and how they approach things, yeah, they start off rough and they're still rough for a very large part of the film, but near the end they can't deny the supernatural evidence in front of them, and so they change. They're not completely where Armando is in his faith, shall we say, but they've moved beyond where they were, which in pretty much any other horror film, especially of the 80s, in the midst of the satanic panic and everything, well, Christians, they were just evil. They never thought, they have no logic, and therefore they're evil, and when they die, you're cheering. And sometimes, yeah, that's well deserved in some of those films, but this one gives them character, not the greatest characters in the film, but it gives them something. So I really appreciated that. And even Gwen quotes from 1 Corinthians 15, which is quoting from Hosea as she's, spoilers by the way, uh, going to finally kill the grabber for good, even though from beyond the grave he's come back as this kind of revenant ghost. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? And the Christian influence there. I mean, you're literally quoting scripture. What more do you want? And it's talking, obviously in context of Jesus coming back and conquering death and the grave and everything. But this one's showing, look, you can come back as much as you want. You're not going to win. because people like you will ultimately lose. And yeah, Derrickson himself is not a believer, but still that's brought up extremely well. And it's not, they're not mocking Christianity. They're showing different facets of it. And I really appreciated what they did.
I totally agree. It was, I mean, great characterization, and yeah, no, I was fully expecting like, yeah, Barb and her husband to just get decapitated by the grabber, and the audience would be cheering. But yeah, I was glad they took a different route there. And also, one thing I don't want to spoil for people who haven't seen it, because I really do want people to go see this in theaters, and I think it's really good for the Halloween season. But they do a really interesting storyline with Finny and Gwen's mother, that
Yes.
like where she's not really a character in the first one. She is key to the story, but all we know from the first movie is that she had killed herself, and that was why the abusive father was so fearful of Gwen's psychic visions, because he thought that their mother had committed suicide because of the visions that were plaguing her, and he was fearful of Gwen going that route. But I don't want to spoil it again, but it expands on that storyline here and does something really unexpected, and I thought that really worked for the narrative. So I really liked that,
Yes.
and I liked how it puts Gwen front and center. It explores her character more, and yeah, like, and really hones in on this idea of facing your demons, and in this case, the grabber coming back as this full-on supernatural entity that's very Freddy Krueger. Also, kudos to Ethan Hawke. I think he had a ton of fun playing this guy. I mean, not that it's not a horrible guy, but I think he had some fun though. Like, I mean, I know he's worked with Derrickson and Cargill on Sinister before these movies, but I think he did enjoy really honing in on the villain aspect, and all the acting here is great. Mason Thames, Madeline McGall. I think McGall. I should look that up, but yeah, great cast all around the border here. Really good sequel. I was also a little hesitant going in. I was like, the first one kind of stands well on its own, and it's only based on a short story and not a novel or anything. But they really did a
Yeah.
great job as a follow up here. I would, and I read an interview with Derrickson on Hollywood Reporter the other day, and they asked, because the first movie has Finn and Gwen in middle school, this one is them in high school. They asked if he would do a movie a few years from now where they're in college, and do a trilogy. And I like that he said, I mean, he's not going to do anything if there's no story there. But if a great story presents itself, then it's possible. So I like that they're prioritizing good narrative storytelling over the success of both movies. But I think going forward or Halloween, I think this will make a great double feature for me. I'm definitely gonna be revisiting it a lot, and yeah. Evan, sorry, I didn't ask you if you've seen either the first one or this one, but or if you had any thoughts.
No, I have not seen them. I didn't know that a Cargill was attached to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I remember him from the old, what's it called? The Slash Film podcast days. The old,
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
the like Slash Film cast,
Yep.
and the crazy stories he would tell, that he always said that he wanted to turn into stories later on, which is cool to see him doing that. But I do have a funny connection to this movie. When I was at Halloween Horror Nights a few weeks ago here at Universal Studios, I was walking through one of the scare zones, and I was on my phone trying to find my daughter, because we had separated for a little bit, and then I'm on the phone. I'm talking to my daughter, and I turn around, and the character from the movie is right there in front of my face, and I get the bejeebas scared out of me. I jump backwards. I'm like, "Holy!" And they're like, "Aha!" And then they just walk away.
That's about as terrifying as you get when you're trying to find your daughter in a theme
Oh
park and
man,
you run into
that
the
was bad.
grabber.
That was horrible. I was like, "Oh my god!" Yeah,
Well,
so
I
it's a
hope
fun
the movie
times.
is less traumatizing for you when you if
I'll
you see it
check it out. I'll
eventually. But
check
yeah,
it out.
yeah, awesome. Excellent. Well, I know we want to get into our big topic tonight, so that is all I'll say about Black Phone 2, but please do go see it if you get a chance. I highly recommend both of those movies. But let's get into it, guys. So it's Thursday night. I felt like, it's been a couple weeks since Peacemaker wrapped up season 2, but, this was a Thursday night tradition for about 2 months there. So
Yeah.
now we hope to bring a little bit of that back to you guys tonight by talking about the show and sharing our thoughts. So I know we have done some previous episodes as the season was going on, talking about Peacemaker and Peacemaker season 2. But now that the season is complete, I guess I want to start with what are our initial thoughts on the season as a whole. I know we're all pretty big fans of season 1. I would think, but with season 2 now that it's wrapped up, Evan, we'll start with you. What were your kind of overall thoughts on this season before we get into kind of the specifics?
Sure. Yeah. My first big thought was that this season was more character based, I would say, and it dealt with the interplay and all the different character strengths and weaknesses a lot more than season 1 did. I don't know if you guys just found that apparent too, but there were a lot of moments that really surprised me, and how human they were for these kind of characters, and then also the different cameos and the different. I did appreciate that they didn't overuse the the multi-dimensional thing. They used it just as sparingly as they could, and then they kind of relied on it on the end. But overall, solid season to this to the new DCU now, and I'm looking forward to to what's after this. I think it's Lanterns. I think so.
Yep, Lanterns
Mm.
is. They haven't announced a release date yet, but it should be early 2026. So I'm hoping, I don't think January at this point because we haven't got a trailer or anything, but maybe
Imagine, yeah.
February or March. We'll see. I don't know. But
Oh yeah,
that
that'd be
is next
great.
on the radar. Yeah. Well, Evan, I agree with a lot there, but I would actually say that Peacemaker has always been a character for a show. I think what separates seasons 1 and 2 is tone and in some cases genre. But because when I look at Peacemaker season 1, yes, it's this big great sci-fi horror mashup, and it's really wildly entertaining, but the reason I think it's always been a character for a show is you look at the season 1 and James Gunn decided to make a full series about the most detestable character from the Suicide Squad and make him the protagonist. And
Right.
I love the Suicide Squad, but I went into season 1 of Peacemaker back when it premiered thinking, how are they going to make this guy in any way redeemable and in any way interesting? And he did that from the get-go, and he made this character someone you came to really fall in love with, even when he's being detestable, and when and he does horrible things. But season 1 is so crucial to exploring who Chris Smith is, his backstory, and how that informs the persona that he's made, and but also kind of peeling the layers beneath that persona and exploring who he really is and who he wants to be. So everything about season 2, the foundation for that is set up in season 1, and I think with season 2 it builds on that because I have heard even from some friends and some criticism that's saying season 2 just feels like a different show, and I wish we could just have another big action adventure series and kind of keep Peacemaker. But again, with season 1, it ends on a note that fundamentally changes Chris Smith, because in the final battle with the butterflies, they're doing everything that was aligned with his philosophy, as doing anything to keep the peace, and killing anyone necessary in order to provide stability. The butterflies were doing that, and but because Chris comes to love a group of people with the 11th Street kids, he's found out different things about himself. He chooses to reject that notion at the end of season 1, and that fundamentally changes him, and that sets up everything for season 2. And what I commend James Gunn for is not ignoring that, but actually building on that principle and building on that storyline and laying that as the foundation. So yes, this season does more in terms of emotional depth and some of the things that were touched on in season 1. It explores it in a way deeper context here, and it does this whole storyline with alternate universes, and it has Chris wanting to, by the end, abandon everything, and it's his friends who have to lift him up and get him back into the game. But yeah, again, all of that was laid out in season 1, so I think it really builds on it naturally, even though this season deals with a different storyline, different genres. I really appreciate the cohesiveness of everything really James Gunn has done in the DCU so far, going back to the Suicide Squad and then both seasons of Peacemaker and Superman, and tying it all in. So, Christian, what about you? Like, what are your thoughts on that, and just kind of overall impressions of season 2?
Yeah, I'd say ultimately I like season 1 more than 2, but that's fine. It's just comparing different things. I like that they went in a different direction. I like that they said, "Hey, we're not going to rehash another invasion plot, or we're not going to be heavily focused on Amanda Waller, but we still feel the effects of what happened in season 1." And whenever I talked about it originally, I loved how they just went, "No, we've always been in the new DCU." It just kind of played well. And then when you and I were on, Kevin, talking about this, and you mentioned the hypothesis that you had heard from elsewhere about the identity of this potentially being Earth X, and I had not seen that because, I wasn't like looking at everyone in the background going, okay, you're this, you're that, you're that. He's like, I'm not saying that's a wrong thing to do. It's just would never have been apparent to me to like look at that, and I was blown away. Not as much as I would have been if you hadn't told me that, but that's still good because I don't mind spoilers. Even hearing a hypothesis doesn't like spoil something for me in that way. So the reveal of Earth X felt very real to me, and it hurt to see Chris go through this. Like, this was my ideal world, but this is who I am in this world, or before I had to kill the other person, the other me. It's like, is it worth living in a world like this if I get what I want, but everyone else, who are different races and what have you, can't have what I have? Well, the Chris of season 1 might have made that decision to stay there, but the Chris of season 2, no, because he's had time with the gang, with his friends. And has learned to become a better person. Is still wanting to pursue peace and make it, but he's a different peacemaker. So I really enjoy what they did. It was super fun. Um, the cliffhanger is going to kill me because there is no confirmed season 3. So whether or not he's going to pick that up in the next Superman movie or somewhere else down the line, I don't know. All I know is I need to have a resolution.
I very much so yeah, and we'll go ahead and get into this because there was a lot of backlash and praise for the season finale. I mean, there was moments that were widely acclaimed, but there was disappointment as well. I kind of fall somewhere in the middle of that in terms of that episode. My thoughts on the season finale were that it felt like an epilogue to a novel, like where episode 7 feels like really the final chapter, and then the final episode there was that kind of epilogue you get when you're reading a novel, and it kind of has that extra little whether it's in this case setting up for either the next series or wherever the. I mean, we're definitely going to see these storylines play out. Be it in a movie, a new series, like, and I would say too. 'Cause, I mean, I've consumed every interview with James Gunn and read all up about it, and he's not ruled out of season 3. What he said is just it's not his focus right now, because I think he already has plans for how the Salvation storyline is going to play out, and then how this movie ties into Superman. So we're definitely going to see these characters again. It's just in what avenue we're not sure yet. But that episode, yeah, was it the best of the series? No. And do I think that, as much as I give James credit for introducing me to some great music over the years, and this season continued in that tradition, I do think it was a little gratuitous to have what is essentially 2 music videos kind of ham-fisted into two concert like into the final episode. It was a lot. Hey, I went back and listened to the Nelson album. It was great. But that in conjunction with the and I mean, Oh Lord is a great song, and I've been listening to that repeatedly on playlists. But I also think about in season 1 when they incorporated the theme song into the final episode of that season. It was in the midst of an action sequence, so it very much complemented the story. Here it's like, yeah, we just want to do a big concert because like we can. So I would have liked to have that reduced a little bit and used it to focus a little more on, let's say, Rick Flag, or something going on there to set up Salvation a little more, or maybe get I don't need a ton of cameos, and I didn't need that just for the sake of it. But it would have been fun to maybe have one more alternate universe that they go in, and maybe if it was even like Arrowverse characters they saw or something like that. I don't know. Like that just would have been fun. So there was kind of an opportunity there. Still, a good episode and a really strong season overall. But I mean, I understand the criticisms there. But yes, leaving it on a massive cliffhanger, I cannot wait to see how the Checkmate storyline plays out, how the Salvation storyline plays out. All of these things, I want it now, but I know we're gonna have to be patient, and that's okay. I mean, these are setups for a larger universe, and I trust that Gunn and Peter Safran and all of the creators at DC Studios have things they're cooking. So I'm excited to see where that goes. But well, let's get into some more specifics, though. So I think one of the tenets of this season was the relationship between Chris and Harcourt that is established in season 1. We learned so much in this season about not only why Harcourt hated Chris so passionately at the beginning of season 1, with the reveal here that her best friend was Rick Flag Jr., and so that made her despise Chris from the beginning. But nonetheless, they have this camaraderie that kind of helps her come around a little bit. By the end of season 1, there is a will they, won't they element to it that is explored in much more detail here. So what did you guys think about this relationship and how it played out over the course of season 2?
Yeah, I think it helps build up on her really well. Giving her more motivation of why she's not as open, why she's still wrestling with what Peacemaker did, in the Suicide Squad movie and in season 1. She's gotten to know him better, but it's still the man who took her friend away. Yet she has these feelings for him, and as Miss Toxic Masculinity herself, as is pointed out in this show, she's not able to handle her emotions as you would typically expect, from a male character. And I think that's done well to show that this is not just exclusively a male trait. Women can also be toxic in this way, even if they know it's not the right thing to do emotionally or logically or what have you. So seeing her learn to grow out of it, and also get him to realize, look, this world is perfect for you that we're in now, but it's not perfect for them. And haven't you noticed these things? Haven't you been looking around? You're not paying attention. And she found out after being in there for not even a whole day, because she was actually looking at her surroundings versus what she wanted out of it. but also because she does love him and she wants him to be better and she wants herself to be better too, but she can't get herself there yet because there's that part of her that doesn't think that she can. And yet, the, as we find it along the way, they do work well together. There is something there that's just beyond a little bit of chemistry that they do make each other better. So I appreciate what they did with the two of them, and I can only imagine uh, the rampage that's going to ensue after she learns what Flag did. Uh, which I'm not too big on him going full Waller, but that's its own thing.
And we'll get to that. I have some thoughts on Rick Flag Senior as well. Evan, any other thoughts about Chris and Harcourt in this season?
It was cool to see the different sides of hardcore. Like she's not so hardcore all the time, so it's good to see her smile and actually have some have some agency in these relationships, um, other than she's just mad. So that was nice, and the way that they weave her story in and out all the way up until the finale, and with the restaurant scene, and they keep flashing back to that, and during the concert where she's like trying to enjoy it and stuff like that. But no, I related a lot to their relationship of like they're trying to like fix each other almost, and one's kind of resistant to it. Um, yeah, and it was it was and when that came to a peak in the alternate in the Earth X, she really came through and for Chris there.
No, absolutely, and I have to give a shout out to Jennifer Holland in this season. She gives a phenomenal performance. There's a lot of great acting in this season as a whole, but she
Yeah.
really shows those different sides to Harcourt and the different versions. But and what I really like too, not just the evolution of her and Chris's relationship, but also with her as a character and this theme that runs through with several characters is the idea of them being caught in an endless system that they know is unjust, but they struggle to escape it because Harcourt is someone who has been in like CIA and agencies since she was like 18, and
Right.
this is all she's ever known how to do. And when she gets to the end of the season and she's been through the ringer, and she knows that they're like, especially once the Salvation plan comes into play, and she knows how corrupt Rick Flag Senior is, but she doesn't really see a way out at that point, and she's kind of in this mode of, well, I'm going to do the best I can, and it's only until Sol Rodriguez's character says no to that, and then they're able to team up with um, why am I drawing a blank on the name?
Economos.
No, with Daniel Brooks' character. Why am I?
Oh,
Adebayo.
no,
Sorry, I'm having a
Adebayo.
brain.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm having a
That's
brain fart, y'all. I've been up
No
this
problem.
morning, so my apologies. But Adebayo comes up with the idea that ultimately becomes checkmate, and so that changes everything. But there's also, but with that storyline of her again being reluctant because she doesn't really know a way out of the system, even though she knows it's broken. That also parallels Augie in Earth X, who
mm,
once we find out that it is Earth X, we assume that, oh, he's happy because, yeah, I mean, we know him as this horrible racist monster from season one, and so sure, he's gonna be happy in a world where the Nazis won World War II, and surely it's everything he ever wanted. But we find out actually that this version of Augie is not that, but rather he is a man who doesn't actually like what's going on in the world he's in, but he basically tries to do the best he can. He knows he can't, or he thinks he can't tear down the system on his own, so he does the best to be a good person as best he can in a broken system, and that parallels Harcourt. And I thought that was a really interesting concept because I think for a lot of people, that's really how we feel, whether we like it or not. It is something we have to confront. Of yes, we see injustices in the world, but we have to ask ourselves: are we willing to actually go that far and be willing to stand apart from the system that we're in, or are we going to reluctantly kind of not necessarily embrace it, but just kind of be the best we can in the middle of a broken system? And so I thought it was really bold to ask those questions, to explore that with these characters. So that's something that I thought they did with Harcourt and with this version of Augie quite well.
Yeah, that's one thing that I did not see coming was that this version of Foggy would be what inspires them, and he kind of gives them an example on how to go forward. So that was a cool twist, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciated what they did with him too. Of just the idea of being in the system, you've been raised in it, and yet somehow we don't get all the details, but there's something had to have happened for him to have the epiphany of this is wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
What does he do with it? And there's plenty of parallels, to people who were in, just easy example here, Nazi Germany, who didn't know what they could do. Did they actively resist? Did they peacefully protest? We've got I think it was the White Rose, which were a group of students who peacefully were protesting against the Nazi regime, and they were killed for it, murdered for it. Um, then we've also got, our Bonhoeffers and Wurmbrand. I think Wurmbrand ended up in a concentration camp too, who were Christians who
Hmm.
uh, resisted, the rise of the Nazis and said this isn't how things should go. But there were also plenty of other people who didn't do those things, but also felt that it was wrong, but they didn't want to, or they couldn't imagine actively resisting because, oh no, what if this puts my family in danger? Or if I try to subtly influence my sons in this universe, are they going to, pull rank and then report on me, like what happened to countless people with the Hitler Youth
Oh yeah.
in Nazi Germany, would then report on their own families because they let things slip. Um, yeah, to be in that situation, it makes me love his character a lot more. He was a good character in the first season, but he's good in a different way here. Obviously, being a different character in another universe, because that adds a lot more depth to that. What does it mean? How did he learn? What did he decide to do? Did he just decide to help as best he could? Is he a member of the resistance and he hasn't admitted it out loud yet to anyone? Like, what's going on there? I really appreciate that.
Also, quick side note. So I listened to the entirety of the podcast that James Gunn, Jennifer Holland, and Steve Agee hosted, the companion podcast for Peacemaker,
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
broke everything down. One thing that, like, one plot line that James Gunn originally wrote in one draft and then cut was he had Myrn come back in this season in the alternate universe as a resistance leader as part of the Sons of Liberty, and it
All
was
right.
this big action hero, and I'm like, oh, I wish that had been kept in because I would have loved to see that. I think that would have been perfect for episode 7, but I digress. But I just because like Myrn was my favorite character in season 1, I think that would have been awesome. But Christian,
Okay. Correction. Wurmbrand wasn't Nazi Germany. It was communist Romania. So
gotcha. Okay,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah,
different,
yeah, yeah.
All right.
different bad guys of a different flavor.
Got it. Yeah. But yes, I would have loved to see Myrn there. That would have been cool. But alas, there was a lot going on this season, so it is what it is. But I also wanted to. So I mentioned, even though I had a brain fart, but Adebayo, I want to give a huge shout out. I think is arguably the best character in the entire series, and
Oh man,
Danielle
yeah.
Brooks gives just an Emmy-worthy
Oof.
performance in this season. That I
That was
mean,
great.
that scene in the finale when she is the one who well, she has two great scenes in the finale because one is
Mm-hmm.
when she and her wife decide to firmly recognize that while they care for each other, they know it's not going to work out between them, and it's a wonderfully written, wonderfully acted scene. But probably even more so is this scene when Chris is at his lowest point. He doesn't even want to be rescued from jail. He thinks that he is the reason that people around him die, and she's the one who is there as his best friend and lifts him up from the ground and says, "No, you're the reason. Like, we are the 11th Street kids, and you're the deaths that have happened are not your fault. Like, those things would have happened either way, and you are the leader we need here." And what makes it even more heartbreaking is because it's soon followed by Chris getting abducted by Rick Flag Sr. and then thrown into the Salvation World, and I'm like, oh, this makes it even like more, rips my heart out. But she gives such a phenomenal performance there, and the character, especially, introduced in season 1 as the daughter of Amanda Waller, and you're like, oh, that's a cool twist. It's like, oh, how is this going to play out? And I just love what they do with her entire storyline, going back to the formation of Checkmate, and, Harcourt is ready to, even after going through everything this season, she's just says, to Saul Rodriguez's character that, oh, the system is what it is. There's not really anything we can do. But Saul Rodriguez's character is like, no, we have to. And Adebayo is the one who comes up with the idea for Checkmate, and that propels the team going forward. And I'm very excited whenever we do see that storyline play out in whatever form. I can't wait to see what happens there. Whether we get a Checkmate series or what. But I just love what they've done with Adebayo throughout the series, and I love all the 11th Street kids, but I think she's my favorite. She's just, a wonderful actor, wonderful character. I think she's probably the most relatable because she comes in as this outsider. She's like trying to do good, but she's, manipulated, torn around, but eventually comes to be, the best friend that Chris needs, the hero that this team needs. And yeah, I really can't wait to see all of these characters again, whenever we do see them in future movies and shows.
But even earlier on in the finale, there's a great moment between her and Vigilante where
Yes.
she manipulates him, like knowing who he is. She's kind of learned, okay, I wouldn't normally say this, but because you're you, I have to word it this way. So, of getting him to use all the drug money that from the bust that he's had, that he's just honor before reason of it's blood money, I can't use it. Well, she gets him to use it because what does he love more than his honor? He loves Peacemaker. So bailing him out of jail and then later on using it to help fund Checkmate because the money's just lying there. But could you imagine doing something good with it? As opposed to the evil that normally would have been used for it had you not, busted those dealers and who were wreaking devastation with the epidemics that they were throwing out with people being fueled and corrupted by the drugs they were addicted to. Like, let's use it for good. And any character, I don't care who can stand up to Amanda Waller, you've earned my respect. And a bonus points, that's your mom. Yeah, so Adebayo definitely is one of my favorites in the series. I can definitely agree there. I might edge out Vigilante a little more than her character-wise as far as loving, but you know what? I haven't sat down and think this is exactly I'm going to create my tier list for Peacemaker characters. But yeah, great points. Having that she kind of becomes like the moral center. Economos is kind of there too as a moral center, but she's a different flavor. And bringing them all together, she knows them well. She knows how to play them against each other, not in a manipulative way, but okay, this is what it means. I have to play the game so I can get you to do the right thing. And sometimes you got to have characters like that. You need friends like that, and I'm glad she's around.
Absolutely. Oh, and Vigilante, I mean, of course, we have to talk about that. This is, I think, one of my favorite scenes in maybe this year of when Vigilante and his alternate self recreate the Spider-Man meme. Their dynamics there is just and there's just so many. Well, I think what I find fascinating about Vigilante is, he has a care for his friends, and he has ultimately, I think, has a good heart. Or going back to the drug money thing, it's like, okay, he refuses to use the money that he's gotten from beating up drug dealers because he sees it as blood money, but then he treats his mom horribly. He's such a wild card and such a contrast. And Freddie Stroma, like, oh, this is another fun fact about that I got from the podcast. It was originally another actor in season one cast for Vigilante, and they actually filmed quite a bit of it. And James Gunn just said, like, I mean, it was a good actor, but he never revealed who it was, but said it just wasn't working. And they ended up getting Freddie Stroma much later, and they had to reshoot a lot in season one, and and he's actually not the one in the dance sequence in season one. So, there's a lot, it was really fascinating, but it's so interesting because I cannot see anyone else but him in this role. Same with John Cena as Peacemaker, and that's the other. I know I'm going off on random tangents here, but James Gunn originally wrote the role of Peacemaker back in Suicide Squad for Dave Bautista, and Bautista wasn't able to do it. And it's like I can see that, but I also it's just John Cena here. It's like RDJ and Iron Man. It's just there's no one else that could do it as well. I love Bautista, but I like save him for Bane. I think John Cena just was born to play this role. Same with Freddie Stroma playing Vigilante. It's just like you could not have gotten better casting here, and so I was glad that worked out. But it's not just comic relief here, but he also undergoes some really great emotional moments and emotional arcs here. That's what I love is that each of these characters are taken seriously, even in a show that is in a rather absurd world and it has all this crazy stuff going on. These are still, all of them are taken seriously. They have really fundamental arcs, and none of them feel like characters. I mean, even Judo Master, who we thought, I actually wasn't really expecting to come back in the season. They've now made him part of the Checkmate team. It's fascinating to see how these characters have grown, even over the course of just 2 seasons.
One thing that I learned, it's just kind of off topic, but the actor that plays Vigilante, he's the same actor that trained Harry Potter in Quidditch in the first Harry Potter movie.
Yep.
It's the same guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like, no way.
Yeah.
Who would
Shows you how well I recognize actors.
Wait, in the front, I think he's in like not the one who trains him, but he is in a Harry Potter movie. I think he's in like Goblet of Fire though.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's like because the one who trains him in like the first one is older and stuff, but he is in everybody. He's in Game of Thrones in something too. I saw a reel the other day that had some of his previous roles. So yeah, a lot of actors you do see in other things before you actually recognize them in a role.
I didn't know that Economos was also King Shark.
He was, yes. So Steve Agee is King Shark. It was the voice of Sylvester Stallone, but Steve Agee did the body work for it. He's actually one of James Gunn's best friends. So they've gone back for years, and so he put him in the Guardians movies. He put him in those, and then he had him play Economos and the physicality of King Shark in the Suicide Squad. But yeah. Awesome. Well, I know we could go on and on but I would say, so just wrapping up here, do you all have any favorite moments from this season? And anything in particular that you're... actually, sorry, before we get back, let's go on and talk about Rick Flag for a minute, because I know he probably does have well, Christian, go ahead, you can start here, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So obviously he's dealing with grief and anger, and the loss of his son. Peacemaker is directly responsible for that. I get it, but I'm not big on the arc that Gunn gives him. Especially after having seen Creature Commandos and watching what he does there. It's not like he's moved past the grief to the extent that he's moved on, but like there was something there. There's a heroicness to him, despite certain aspects of who he is and the bad work that he does. And I think we kind of lose that thread here to where he becomes solo focused on revenge, and that leads him to do things I don't think he would do as far as the Salvation Project is concerned. Of course, calling to the comic run where we send all of our villains of the DC universe to this one planet. Uh, and some surprising things to learn. I don't know if we want to focus on the revelations in the comic because I haven't really spoken about it here. But keeping the flag, I don't see it. That I don't feel like it's earned. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, I think like in Creature Commandos, I need to give Commandos a rewatch because I mean I watched it last year, but that already feels like maybe because anything pre 2025 feels like ages ago. But he is like I wouldn't call him a full on hero in that. It's more but he's still more heroic, not full on villain.
Yes.
And he doesn't seem to focus on the vengeance as much. And then in Superman, I think he's dealing with the conflict of okay, he's in a position of authority. He's trying to do what's best for humanity, and by the end, it's like, okay, on the one hand, superheroes saved everything, but also does that grant them limitless power? And is he thinking in the back of his mind like, oh, what could the ramifications of this be? And does that inform, who he is in this season? I do agree that he was very revenge consumed in this season, but as I don't think that was the only motivating factor for him authorizing salvation. Again, I think it is in his mind he sees himself as the hero here, and despite his dealings with metahumans and seeing some of the good they do, I think ultimately he's just trying to okay, I'm in charge of I have all this power. I'm tasked with defending government and humanity, and making sure that metahumans don't run reckless. Obviously, I don't agree with him, but I'm wondering if that's kind of his mindset. So I'm a little. I mean, it does feel like a departure from who he is in terms of the incarnations of him we saw previously. But I'm hoping that will be explored more. And yeah, I think I understand why the revenge arc was crucial to this season and it fit really well. But at the same time, it's like, dude, okay, we get it, but also, yeah, like I mean, your son knew the sacrifices he would have to make, and that he's dealing. I mean, he was working with Task Force X. Like there was anything could have happened at any moment, and so I think there is that like revenge blinds him, and it got to be a little too much. So I've got a half and half there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you guys are saying that the character took a turn, and he was I I got the feeling that like when you do a project at work or something and you have different groups and there's another group where the leader clearly is not doing anything and he's letting everyone else do everything. That's the vibe I got from him. That he was just like so bent on finishing it, he just let the little minions just work on the projects for him, which weird, but all right.
It will be really interesting to see what they do with him in Superman 2, Man of Tomorrow, and yeah, I mean, I like it, and especially now that okay, he got his vengeance. Where will his focus turn now? But yeah, making him Amanda Waller essentially here. It's a turn, but I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. And I mean, hey, because of his turn, we got a Lex Luthor cameo in the season, and that was one of my favorite moments. So it worked.
So do we know how he pulled a reverse James Gunn with his hair from Creature Commandos? Because he's white haired.
That's it. So Gunn talks about that. He's like,
oh, he does?
Yeah, Frank Grillo. Like it was it was a scheduling conflict where it was like Frank Grillo was doing Tulsa King and he couldn't dye his hair for that. And James Gunn was kind of pissed at him for because he was like the first actor he cast in the DCU, and he's like, yes, Grillo doing a million projects and stuff, but they're they have a friendly banter with each other, but that it was only that. So Gunn would have loved him to have the white hair here, but that was the only reasoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, with Lex Luthor was a fun
Yeah.
addition to it. and
Yeah.
the fact that he had his cane
Right.
from the damage from
Crypto.
crypto. Yeah, yeah. So it was a nice
Yeah.
touch. Nice touch.
And it's really cool too because when they filmed that, they were filming Superman. Like, because I mean, James Gunn wrote Creature Commandos, Peacemaker season 2, Superman,
All at the
all
same
back to
time.
back, and
Yeah.
they had to coordinate it. And so for Nicholas Holt to come in and play and perform that scene, knowing that he hadn't even shot everything in Superman yet, but he had to portray the version of the character that was after the events of Superman and get into that mindset, and he did it spectacularly. So I really commend the vision behind that, the performance and the writing. So awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, before we wrap up, yeah. So let's say what were maybe as a favorite moment, favorite scene from this season, and what are you most looking forward to about just DC going forward? I can start with this. I think that the Augie monologue in episode 7 that I was talking about earlier was for me the most surprising, and also I think some of the most clever writing in the throughout the season. Because again, I was fully expecting Augie in this universe to be, oh, he's happy because yeah, he's living in white supremacy haven. But it was actually, no, we already got the monster version of him in season 1. This is a more sympathetic version of the character that is caught in a horrible world, but he doesn't actually agree with all that. And so that was and also to have that hope there for Chris, and then for it to immediately be thwarted when Augie is killed right after that monologue. I'm like, yes, Gunn continuing the tradition of breaking our hearts, and and then setting up the brother as a future villain.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yes.
yeah. So all of that. I think as far as what I'm looking forward to the most, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I know I'm just head over heels for DC Studios right now, but I'm really interested in seeing how. I think even more so Checkmate even than Salvation. I think Salvation is a fascinating concept, and I do want to see how that plays out. But I'm actually even more interested in what they do with Checkmate, because now they have the 11th Street kids running things the way they want, and they're going to try to do some good, and really fight the system, and and to be able and to now have to do it without Chris there presents a new dilemma. But I really am fascinated to see how that storyline plays out, be it in Superman or another show or movie, wherever they take that team. I'm really excited for that. Evan, what about you? Do you have either a favorite scene or moment from the season and something you're looking forward to?
For sure, yeah. My favorite scene has to be the moment where they have that not they have a what's it called? But the moment with Adebayo and Chris
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to bring him back from his hole that he's in and from his estate, and just her speech about like you're so dumb and you're so big, but you still make me feel seen, and you're such a great leader, and just it really got me. It really
Yeah.
got me, and that really stood out, and that made all the other scenes so much more satisfying because we know where they came from and how she brought everyone together. And the music videos weren't a bad touch. I like the music videos. It was fun.
Great music, absolutely. Yeah. Christian, what about you? I'm gonna guess your favorite scene was the orgy. And
Oh,
so do I.
yes. I think about it every day.
Continuous
It's like,
orgy.
yeah. That was one of my least favorite scenes. Um, I'm actually going to go with when he goes to Earth X and he deals with what he thinks is a terrorist attack. And it's a great action scene. You see how tactical he is, taking down people. He knows he doesn't know the people, but he knows how people would typically go. So he's kind of like 5 steps ahead. It's a wonderful scene. But then in hindsight, there are a lot of questions brought up there, and you go, wait a minute, oh, he was killing resistance fighters, who, by the way, were also targeting civilians. The how does that work? Whose side am I supposed to be on there? There's a lot of good questions that are brought up. Are they going to be any better if they take over, or are they just at the point of they've been so broken down by years of oppression that this is what we have to do? This is the only they understand force, so we have to respond with force. And then Chris having to go, oh, I'm responsible for the deaths of people who didn't deserve it. What am I supposed to do with that? There's a lot of really good stuff that you can draw from that. And then like a more of a jokey one, but when Vigilante meets himself, yeah, it's a fun one. I, I love myself. I can only imagine I'd be worse if I ever met me from another reality. Um, it, I deal heavily with pride, but could you imagine if God allowed me a situation where I got to meet me? I'd have to learn some humility really, really quickly. But it's fun. Yeah, it raises some questions. How does Pokemon exist in a Nazi-controlled world? Yeah. Imperial Japan would be an ally, but they wouldn't really have evolved along the way that Pokemon are created. Same thing with Spider-Man. It's like created by a Jewish guy that Stan Lee somehow pretend to be not Jewish when they took over.
Right.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. It's fun.
Christian, if you met an alternate version of yourself, I imagine this happening of like you're agreeing on everything, and then he says, "Oh, The Last Jedi is my favorite movie,"
Oh,
and
he's
I
got to
want to
die.
see I want to see that play out.
And
Yeah.
It's a mercy killing at that point.
yeah, and his name is Atheist. Sorry, that was bad.
It would be entertaining to meet alternate versions of yourself just to see what would the similarities and differences be. But
And
yes.
as far as future projects,
Mm-hmm.
other than Supergirl, I mean, I want to see what he does with Batman. I mean, he's one of the greatest characters of all time. He's been interpreted in various ways. How is he going to fit into the DCU? I want to see my Batman.
I mean, I know the pressure is on there, and it'll happen eventually. And I'm glad he's not doing anything until he's happy with the script and they're good to go there.
Yes.
But yeah, no one will rest until we know, who's going to be the cast and when that movie's going to happen. So we will see. Awesome, guys. Well, this has been great. And before we go, do you guys have a recommendation, be it something we talked about tonight or something totally different? I can actually start because, this is not the first time that a live action series has dealt with Earth X. They first did it in the Arrowverse the years ago in a crossover called Crisis on Earth X. I highly recommend that one, even if you've never. I was a big Arrowverse fan when it was on, but even if you never delved into that shows, if you want a nice standalone crossover event, like yes, it does have the death of a character there, but you can kind of watch that as a movie. It was Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow. Just look up online the episodes and watch the Crisis on Earth X event. So it's just 4 episodes. That was a ton of fun. It's where they go to the Nazi dimension and they have to battle them and they meet alternate versions of themselves. Ton of fun. So I really recommend that one. But Christian, what about you?
Yeah. I'll get from my lightning round. K-pop Demon Hunters. It's fun. It's one I had a great time watching it. I know it's become a cultural phenomenon that I got late to the party too, but you know what? I'm glad to be a part of it now.
Welcome.
Right on. Right on. Evan, what about you?
Since it's the season 3 is coming out on my birthday, I'll suggest Star Wars Visions.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. I saw a few episodes the other day, and man, that's some good stuff right there. That's some good storytelling, just in general, just great storytelling.
We're supposed to get a follow up to what was it, the Ninth Jedi, I think.
Yeah.
Love that one.
Yeah. So,
Excellent picks.
Excited for that.
Excellent. Awesome, guys. Well, this has been a blast as always. And for our listeners out there, viewers, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, rate, review, share with your friends. If we get 50 likes on YouTube at any point, Will Rose, who is one of our fellow hosts, will do something, whether it's frolicking through a field of flowers or maybe wearing an embarrassing Halloween costume. Who knows? We'll do something. But hey, your support means the world to us. So keep sharing the show, keep geeking out, and remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests. I totally butchered that. I apologize. It's been but I'm having a blast
no
here.
judgment.
Thank you for putting up with our various idiosyncrasies tonight and having a good time with us. We love you all.
Bye.